Okay, so we're going to go ahead and make a sign today here to cut out on the STEPCRAFT 2840. We're going to use V Carve Pro. It's going to be a pretty simple sign, just a piece of oak. We're going to have it's going to basically say the Johnsons. We're just going to use a generic last name. And we're gonna show you how to do that. So first thing you're going to do is create a new file. Then we are going to assign the width of the sign. Now, because this is the 840, we know we have about 23 inches of width, and we've got closer to 33 inches of length. So we want this sign to be 31 inches long. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. So we're going to make the height of the sign 31, and we're going to make the width of the sign, let's say 6 inches. So our work area now over here shows that it's 6 inches wide and 31 inches long. We're going to tell the system how thick the material is that we're using. So on this particular sign, let's say we're using 3/4 of an inch. The XY datum position, this is the start position where you're going to zero off your tool. And typically we use the lower left corner, and you can see it indicated here by this red mark. The other option that we commonly use would be the center of the workpiece. But in this case, we're going to go ahead and clamp the material down, and we're going to start using the lower left position. We're going to design this in inches. And that's it. Then we're just going to click OK, and we're ready to start designing. So the first thing we want to do is we want to set up the last name of the family. So Johnson, Johnsson. You know what? Actually, let's do this. We'll do Johns, Johnsons, apostrophe S. Now, because our width here is 6 inches, I want the text height to be 4 inches. And we're going to go ahead and center it. We're going to use the Times Roman font. We are going to do it in bold, and we're going to click apply. And there you have it on the screen here, Johnson's. So what I need to do now is close this, go over to the arrow, rotate, move scale tool, put the cursor over the outside dark box. We're going to hold the shift key, and we're going to rotate this till it's vertical. Then we're going to click on the Align Selected Objects box, and we're going to click this middle one here, which is going to center it in the workpiece. And now, as you can see, this is not going to fit. So what we're going to do is we're going to rescale it. So we're going to go back and click on the Move Scale button, and we are going to zoom out just a hair, and dragging in the corner, you can see now all of a sudden we can get this to scale to the size we need. Now I'm actually going to go a little bit smaller than that, and I'm going to move this towards the end because I want to have room to put the word "the" over here. You can make it a little taller too, which I think we will. Get the letters a little taller. And we're going to go over here, and we're going to recenter this job now, left to right, and we're going to click close. All right, so now we got to do the word "the." So we're going to go ahead and click on Draw Text, and we're going to type in "the." This time we want the letters to be pretty small, so we're going to say 1.25 inches, same font, same bold. We're going to click apply, and there's our word "the." We're going to click on the move tool, and we are going to move this right here. Now what I want to do is I want to rotate this, but I want it to be at an angle, kind of like that. And now it'll basically say the Johnsons, and this is how I want to lay the sign out. I want it to look just like this. And maybe what we're going to do, one final adjustment here. Let's click on Johnson's, and let's move it down just a little bit. Perfect. So there's our sign. Now there's one other thing that I want to do here. I want to create a box all the way around the perimeter because I'm going to use a 1/2 inch V Carve bit and I want to bevel the outside edge of the sign. So what I'm going to do is, we know that we are 6 inches wide and we are 31 inches long. So you can, in this particular tool, when you choose to draw a rectangle, you have a couple options. You can draw a rectangle manually on the screen simply by holding your mouse button down and then dragging, and you could see you've got a rectangle there. In this case, we want a more accurate size, and since we know the size of the workpiece and I want this to be the same size, I'm just going to go back here and we're going to go 6 inches by 31 inches, and we want it to be square, and we'll use the anchor point as the center of the workpiece. And you could see it put the box there, but it's not centered. So what we want to do is we want to center that. So we're going to click the align button and then align to the material. And now you can see that box is all the way around. So that's pretty much it. There it is. The sign is it's designed. So now what we need to do is we need to assign a toolpath to it. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do what's called V carving, and we're going to V carve the letters of the sign. And what's nice about a V carve is if you use a 1/2 inch V carve bit, the parts of the letters here that are wider are going to actually be deeper, and then as the letters narrow, the Z is going to move up, and it'll still have a V-shaped bevel to it, but it'll be thinner. And it's just a really, really nice effect when you're doing sign work. So what we're going to do here is we are going to highlight all of the text. Then we're going to go over to the V Carve engraving toolpath. We're going to select a bit. Now in this case it was already pre-selected, but we're going to use a 90-degree 1/2 inch bit, and this is what the bit looks like. You can get one of these at Home Depot for about 20 bucks. It's a standard router bit with a 1/4 inch shank. You can set the parameters here. In this case, it was already pre-done, so it's a 1/2 inch wide, 90-degree 90-degree angle from here to here. The pass depth on this, meaning what is the maximum depth for each pass, is going to be, we're going to set this because we're going to do this on hardwood. So while a 1/4 inch is okay, on a hardwood, we want to take it a little easier on the router. So we're just going to do 1/8 of an inch as our pass depth. And the rest of this information here is really of no consequence right now. As far as first pass step over and clearance, we're just going to leave that set to the default. Now, if you're using our STEPCRAFT HF500 spindle, then you'll want to assign an RPM here. If you're using a Crest router or a DeWalt or a Dremel, you won't need to do that because the G-code is not controlling the RPM of the spindle. So in this case, we are going to be using HF500, and I'm going to set this to 12,000 RPM. Now the feed rate on the STEPCRAFT machine, the maximum speed of a STEPCRAFT is 50 millimeters per second. What I like to do is I like to set up a job initially. We'll select millimeters per second, and I like to set it up for 25. And the reason I like to do that is because when you're running on UCCNC, the speed is set to 100%, so that's 25 millimeters a second. But the program allows you on the fly to vary the speed all the way up to 200%, which would be 50 millimeters per second. So if you're not sure what is the correct feed rate for a given bit, start at half speed. Now, if this starts cutting and you can really hear the spindle straining or it's burning chips, or you can go in and you can lower it to maybe 50% or 70% and just see what gives you the optimum results. And then what you can do is, once you're familiar with it, so for instance on oak, say we were all set with oak and we knew 25 was the number, and it gave us the best cutting result. What I can do up here is I could actually save this, and I could just put the word oak next to it. So when I click OK, I now have that saved in my tool library. Now, if I was cutting pine and I wanted to use this same bit, what I can do is highlight the bit. I can go to copy, and it's going to create an exact copy of it. This time I can select pine, and maybe on pine, because it's softer wood, pine might want to run at 40 millimeters per second with no problem. So now I've saved that. So the next time I go do a pine sign, I can actually just select this bit, and I know that the speed is already set. Now, granted, you're going to have to do a run first to determine what is the best speed. So for instance, on the oak sign, if I'm doing oak and I got it set to 25 millimeters per second, and I'm running the job and I set it to 150%, now I know, and that sounds good. If I go 160, it sounds like it's straining a little bit. So now I know that the optimum feed rate for this bit on oak is 150% of 25. So I would go back in here and I would readjust this to probably 35 or 38 millimeters per second. And now the next time I go to use this, I will actually recall oak, and I know that it's already set. So now when UC CNC says 100%, it is running the feed rate that we've set here. So the first time you run a new material, you have to kind of do it by ear and see what works the best. But then after that job is done, you can put that information in here and recall it for future use. So now that that's done, we are all set pretty much with this. There's nothing else to set here. We've set the start depth, which is 0, which is the top of the material. One thing we can do is we could set a flat depth on this, and what'll happen is the wider the letter, if you don't set a maximum depth, and the bit is a 1/2 inch wide, you'll send the bit down so that the channels for the letters will be quite deep. We're going to check the preview and see how that looks, and then we'll come back and we can always adjust that. So after everything is all set and done, we're going to click calculate, and it brings us over to the preview menu. Now what we can do here is click preview visible toolpaths, and we get a good rendering of what this sign is going to look like. So you can zoom in and you can see how deep the letters are going here, and it's really hard to see, like, is it going all the way through? No, but it's kind of hard to tell how deep it's going. In this case, I think it would be fine, but let me just show you what it would look like if we were to flatten that out. So if I double click this toolpath and I set the flat depth for 1/4 inch, that's basically going to tell the software that the cutter is not to cut any deeper than 1/4 inch into the material. So I'm going to click recalculate, and I'm going to reset the preview and visible toolpath. Now as we zoom in this time, you'll see how the letters are beveled still, but you'll see a flat channel at the bottom instead of it continuing all the way to a point. So it's just a matter of what you want this to look like, what kind of effect are you trying to get, and how thick your material is for the given width of the letters that you're doing. So I was happy with it as a V carve. So I'm gonna go ahead and I unselect that. I click calculate and reset and just preview it again. Everything is good, looks good. So now all we need to do, we have 2 more steps. The next step is we're going to go back here and we're going to click on this outline. Now I want to put a V bevel all the way around. Now I already have that V carve tool bit in the router. So I'm going to go ahead, and this time I'm going to click on profile toolpath, and I'm going to select that same bit for oak. I'm going to leave everything the same. I'm going to click OK. And I am going to want to cut, in this case, I want to cut outside the line. And I want to go down 1/4 inch. So I want a 1/4 inch bevel. And I'm going to click calculate, and we're going to see what this looks like. I'll preview all toolpaths. And if I zoom in, you can actually see it didn't touch it. And there's a reason for that. That's because The bit I said to cut on outside the line, well, we're not going down deep enough to actually make any contact with the outside. So we're going to do this again. We're going to click on the line, and we're going to come back and recalculate. We're going to reset the preview all toolpaths. This time, perfect. Now we have a nice bevel all the way around the perimeter. So you need to make sure when you're using a V-bit, you want to go ahead and if you're beveling an edge, you want to do it on the line. And because it's a 90-degree bevel angle on the tool, when I said I want to go down 1/4 of an inch, this height from right here to right here is 1/4 of an inch. And because it's 90 degrees, the distance between here and the side of the material is also 1/4 of an inch. So essentially I've made a symmetrical bevel all the way around this sign. And that's pretty much it. There's my sign. I can, if I was going to paint the inside of the sign letters, say red, I could actually change the global fill color and make it red if I want, so that I could see what's this thing going to look like when it's painted, which is kind of cool. So you can change that to any color you want. If you want to do black, you can see what it's going to look like black. You can also change the material color here. So if I wanted to look at it in dark wood, or perhaps we're going to do light oak, I can see exactly what this is going to look like. Now, it's important to note that the quality of what you see on the screen is going to be about 99% accurate to what you see on your router. So if something doesn't look right here, it's not going to look right when you cut it out. This preview is invaluable, and the fact that you can just cut and rotate and look at all sides of the sign really makes it so that you save a lot of time, you don't waste as much material, and you get a good preview ahead of time. This is also really good too if you were doing this for a customer. What you can do is take a picture of the image. So there's actually a save preview image here, and you can save the JPEG file of the sign and then send that to your customer to get an approval. So that's a kind of a nice feature without having to actually fire up the router and load material in. And that's as simple as it gets for a basic V carving. Any other questions, or if you would like to find out more about STEPCRAFT, please visit www.stepcraft.us.